night 10 of the nights before Christmas, and it's almost Christmas time. Tonight's story needs no introduction. Join conductor Nick as he tells this classic tale. Feel free to play along at home.
Did you ever ask for a present from Santa that you didn't get?
You know, I had a kitchen growing up when I was young, and I think I also asked for like an easy bake oven type toy to go along with that, and I never got one of those. And I'm not much of a cook or a baker, and neither is my mom, but I used to bake Christmas cookies with my grandmother a lot growing up, but I never got an easy bake oven, and maybe that's why to this day I'm not a big baker or cook, because I'm still waiting for that easy bake oven from Santa, you know? So I don't know, but that might be the one gift that I always wanted to try out because the commercials look fun and I never got it.
We wish you a Merry Christmas, we wish you a Merry Christmas, we wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Good tidings we bring to you and your kin. Good tidings for Christmas and a Happy New Year. Now bring us some figgy pudding, now bring us some figgy pudding, now bring us some figgy pudding and bring some out here. We won't go until we get some, we won't go until we get some, we won't go until we get some, so bring some round here. We wish you a Merry Christmas, we wish you a Merry Christmas, we wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
For me, Christmas has always been about family. As a kid, me and my brother, DJ, my mom and my dad, my grandma and grandpa Payne, grandma and grandpa Thompson, my aunt Phyllis and Uncle Dwayne, and Michael and Kevin. And probably the best memories I have of Christmas came from those Christmas mornings at grandma and grandpa Payne's house. And we would always pile in the car, and from stories I hear later, the Christmas presents were all surrounding us in the car and in the trunk. And but we'd get to grandma and grandpa Payne's house, and we'd sleep there in the house and get up on Christmas morning, and we'd do our small family Christmas with mom and dad and DJ and I. And then we'd have a little bit of time, and we'd play with the presents that we got. Probably my favorite memory I had of a present I received when I was a kid was those electric football games that you plug in, and they vibrated the little plastic figures all over the board, and you could never really get them to go where you wanted them to. But I was so excited about that. I was so excited that years later, as an adult, I found one at a yard sale and bought it again so that I could have that nostalgia memory, I guess. But you know, we would have the Christmas morning with our small family at grandma and grandpa's, and grandma and grandpa would come and watch, but we didn't get to open presents from grandma and grandpa till later. And there was always that anticipation, that time from when our Christmas was over. We'd spend all morning playing with our new things, and then we had to wait, and we had to wait. And we waited for Aunt Phil and Uncle Dwayne and the cousins to arrive, because they had spent early Christmas morning with Uncle Dwayne's family in Rensselaer, I believe it was. And we didn't get to have big Christmas with the whole family until they got there. And so I remember Christmas mornings, we weren't even allowed to be in the room with all the presents until they got there. So we had to hide out either in the bedrooms or in the other living room, and we'd wait and get by the front window and just in anticipation and waiting and watching. And man, when they got there, we were so excited. And as we got older, and once the grandparents were no longer with us, I remember having that same kind of anticipation at Mom and Dad's house, because once Grandpa Payne was gone, and he was one that made Christmas big every year. There was a new Grandpa Payne in town, and he took over and made sure. Excuse me for that. He made sure that Christmas was big every year too. And I remember even as young adults, DJ and I would have to wait in the other room until Santa had arrived, and we weren't allowed to come out until everything was just.
Good evening, boys and girls. You might recognize me as the conductor from the Polar Express. Well, maybe you don't recognize me since I'm not even in costume this year. I know things are a little bit different right now, but I still wanted to get together with you and read you my favorite story. And I feel like, as long as you guys have your magic bells there at home, I think we can still have some fun. So, let's read together, shall we? The Polar Express by Chris Van Allsburg. On Christmas Eve, many years ago, I lay quietly in my bed. I did not rustle the sheets, and I breathed slowly and silently. I was listening for a sound a friend had told me I would never hear. The ringing bells of Santa's sleigh. There is no Santa, my friend had insisted, but I knew he was wrong. Late that night, I did hear sounds, though not of ringing bells. From outside came the sounds of hissing steam and squeaking metal. I looked through my window and saw a train standing perfectly still in front of my house. It was wrapped in an apron of steam. Snowflakes fell lightly around it, and a conductor stood in the open door of one of the cars. He took a large pocket watch from his vest and then looked up at my window. I put on my slippers, and I put on my robe, and I tiptoed downstairs and out the door. "All aboard!" the conductor cried out. I ran up to him. "Well," he said, "are you coming?" "Where?" I asked. "Why, to the North Pole, of course. This is the Polar Express." I took his outstretched hand, and he pulled me aboard. The train was filled with other children, all in their pajamas and nightgowns. We sang Christmas carols and ate candies with nougat centers as white as snow. We drank hot cocoa as thick and rich as melted chocolate bars. Outside, the lights of towns and villages flickered in the distance as the Polar Express raced northward. Soon, there were no more lights to be seen. We traveled through cold, dark forests where lean wolves roamed and white-tailed rabbits hid from our train as it thundered through the quiet wilderness. We climbed mountains so high it seemed as if we would scrape the moon. But then the Polar Express never slowed down. Faster and faster we ran along, rolling over peaks and through valleys like a car on a roller coaster. The mountains turned into hills and the hills to snow-covered plains. We crossed a barren desert of ice, the Great Polar Ice Cap. Lights appeared in the distance. They looked like the lights of a strange ocean liner sailing on a frozen sea. "There," said the conductor, "is the North Pole." The North Pole. It was a huge city standing alone at the top of the world, filled with factories where every Christmas toy was made. At first, we saw no elves. "They are gathering at the center of the city," the conductor told us. "That is where Santa will give the first gift of Christmas." "Well, who receives the first gift?" we all asked. The conductor answered, "Why, he will choose one of you." Look! Shouted one of the children. The elves! Outside, we saw hundreds of elves. As our train drew closer to the center of the North Pole, we slowed to a crawl. So crowded were the streets with Santa's helpers. When the Polar Express could go no farther, we stopped and the conductor led us outside. We pressed through the crowd to the edge of a large open circle. In front of us stood Santa's sleigh. The reindeer were excited. They pranced and paced, ringing their silver sleigh bells that hung from their harnesses. Oh, it was a magical sound like nothing I had ever heard. Across the circle, the elves moved apart, and Santa Claus appeared. The elves cheered wildly. He marched over to us and, pointing to me, said, "Let's have this fellow here." He jumped into his sleigh. The conductor handed me up. I sat on Santa's knee, and he asked, "Now, what would you like for Christmas?" I knew that I could have any gift I could imagine, but the thing I wanted most was not inside Santa's giant bag. What I wanted more than anything in the world for Christmas was one silver bell from Santa's sleigh. When I asked, Santa smiled. Then he gave me a hug and told an elf to cut a bell from a reindeer's harness. The elf handed it up to Santa, and he stood holding the bell high above him and called out, "The first gift of Christmas!" A clock struck midnight as the elves roared their approval. Santa handed the bell to me, and I put it in my bathrobe pocket. The conductor helped me down from the sleigh. Santa shouted out the reindeers' names and cracked his whip. His team charged forward and circled once above us and then disappeared into the cold, dark polar sky. As soon as we were back inside the Polar Express, the other children asked to see the bell. I reached into my pocket, but the only thing I felt was a hole. I had lost the silver sleigh bell from Santa's sleigh. "Well, let's hurry outside and look for it," said one of the kids. But the train gave a sudden lurch forward and started moving away. We were on our way home. It broke my heart to lose the bell. When the train reached my house, I sadly left the other children. I stood at my doorway and waved goodbye. The conductor said something from the moving train, but I couldn't hear him. "What?" I yelled. "What did you say?" He cupped his hands across his mouth and yelled, "Merry Christmas!" The Polar Express let out a loud blast from its whistle and sped away. On Christmas morning, my little sister Sarah and I opened our presents. When it looked as if everything had been unwrapped, Sarah found one last small box behind the tree. It had my name on it. Inside was the silver bell. There was a note. "Found this on the seat of my sleigh. Fix that hole in your pocket. Signed, Mr. C." I shook the bell. It made the most beautiful sound that my sister and I had ever heard. But my mother said, "Oh, that's too bad. It's broken." "Yes," said my father. "It doesn't make any sound." When I had shaken the bell, my parents hadn't heard a thing. At one time, most of my friends could hear the bell, but as years passed, it fell silent for all of them. Even Sarah found one Christmas that she could no longer hear its sweet sound. Though I've grown old, the bell still rings for me, as it does for all who truly believe. So, if you're at home with your silver bells, be sure to give them one special extra jingle tonight, and I will see you all next year. Goodbye, everybody.
Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening by Robert Frost. Whose woods these are, I think I know. His house is in the village, though. He will not see me stopping here to watch his woods fill up with snow. My little horse must think it queer to stop without a farmhouse near, between the woods and frozen lake, on this the darkest evening of the year. He gives his harness bells a shake to ask if there is some mistake. The only other sounds the sweep of easy wind and downy flake. The woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I have promises to keep, and miles to go before I sleep. And miles to go before I sleep.
My Christmas Wish for You by Toni Schaperjohn. My Christmas wish for you, my friend, is not a simple one, for I wish you hope and joy and peace, days filled with warmth and sun. I wish you love and friendship too, throughout the coming year. Lots of laughter and happiness to fill your world with cheer. May you count your blessings one by one, and when totaled by the lot, may you find all you've been given to be more than what you sought. May your journeys be short, your burdens light. May your spirit never grow old. May all your clouds have silver linings, and your rainbows pots of gold. I wish this all and so much more. May all your dreams come true. May you have a Merry Christmas, friend, and a Happy New Year, too.
Hark how the bells, sweet silver bells, all seem to say, throw cares away. Christmas is here, bringing a cheer to young and old, meek and the bold. Ding dong, ding dong, bells their song, ding trickle ring, all carolers.
One seems to hear words of good cheer from everywhere, filling the air. Oh, how they come, raising the sound, o'er hill and dale, telling their tale. Gaily they ring while people sing songs of good cheer. Christmas is here. Ding, 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 dong, ding, 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 dong, ding, dong, ding, ding, dong.
All seem to say, throw cares away. Christmas is here, bringing a cheer to young and old, meek and the bold. Ding dong, ding dong, bells are rung, with trickle ring, all caroling.
One seems to hear words of good cheer from everywhere, filling the air. Oh, how they sound, raising the sound, o'er hill and dale, telling their tale. Gaily they ring while people sing songs of good cheer. Christmas is here. Ding, 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 dong, ding, 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 dong, ding, dong, ding, ding, dong. They send one without end their joyful song to every home.
Ding dong, ding dong.
Help Wanted by Timothy Totcher. Santa needs new reindeer. The first bunch has grown old. Dasher has arthritis. Comet hates the cold. Prancer's sick of staring at Dancer's big behind. Cupid married Blitzen, and Donder lost his mind. Dancer's mad at Vixen for stepping on his toes. Vixen's being thrown out. She laughed at Rudolph's nose. If you're a reindeer, we hope you will apply. This is just one tricky part. You know you must know how to fly.